You ready to go? Kim, you ready to go?
Yeah,
All right. Open meeting.
Okay, welcome to the Board of Supervisors public hearing for Mineral Beach conditional use. Tuesday, April 15th, 2025, 5:30. Roll call.
Here.
Larry Spear, Michelle Dupree here, Suzanne Bainan,
Here.
Carl Hanford here, John Seiler here. Also in attendance, TJ Stevens, Bankston Engineer, Dennis Mako, Mako and Associates, and Janice Carroll, Township Manager. Okay, public comment, we're gonna,
Pledge allegiance.
oh, I'm sorry, I did, forgot. If you can rise for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, if anybody wishes to make a comment, you could raise your hand, right hand, and
All right, so what we're going to do,
sworn in.
if you don't mind if I can handle
Oh,
this,
please
because
do.
I do this. This will be probably the 6th time this month I've
This is
been
my
involved.
first conditional use hearing, so.
This will be my 6th this month. All right, at this point in time, anyone who's going to ask a question or have anything to state, I ask you all to stand. Please raise your right hand and be sworn in. That includes you, Mr. Ham? That includes you, TJ? No. All right, anyone who's going to, okay, TJ, would you stand? Anybody else here have any questions or comments or things they can ask? Let's just do this. Everybody in the audience, please stand and be sworn in. That way I don't have to worry about something. All right, go ahead.
Do you swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Only the truth.
At this point in time, is there a motion to open the public hearing?
I'll make the motion to open the public hearing.
Question, comments on the motion?
John Seiler seconded.
Question, comments on the motion? How do you vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, so at this point in time, I usually run the meetings. Kim will tell you the same thing. So at this point in time, Mr. Ham, could you state your full name, your current occupation, and who you represent?
Chris Ham with KDH Consulting Engineers. We are the civil site designer for Braun Holdings Mineral Beach LLC on the Mineral Beach project.
So you'll be the only person testifying on behalf of the applicant?
Yes.
All right. Before we go any further,
Right out over so we can hear you. There you go. Thank you.
You're
all
welcome.
right, before we go any further, I gave you, for all folks, you all have a list of exhibits in front of you. The first exhibit, the first exhibit will be the conditional use application. That will be, you want to do letters or you want to do numbers, Kim?
Whatever you want to
It's your call.
Letters.
The next one will be, exhibit B will be an October 21st letter from KDH Consulting Engineers. Exhibit C will be a letter from Bankston Engineers dated October 8th, 2024. The next exhibit will be, this will be D, I believe. This will be a letter dated August 14th, 2024 from Bankston. Exhibit E will be a letter dated July 10th, 2024 from Bankston. Exhibit F will be another letter from Bankston dated April 26th. Exhibit G will be a letter April 23rd, 2024 from CEC. Exhibit H will be a letter from Bankston Engineers dated April 9th. Exhibit I will be a letter dated March 22nd, 2024 from Bankston. Exhibit J will be the certified mail receipts for this process. Exhibit K will be the zoning report authored by McMillan Engineers. I don't believe it's dated, but I did receive it in today's email. And lastly, I don't have it with me. Exhibit L would be the proof of publication for today's proceeding. Is there a motion to put all those exhibits A through L into evidence?
I'll make a motion to put all those exhibits into evidence. Second?
I second.
Suzanne Bainan, second. Any questions on the motion? Roll call?
Aye.
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 Okay, it's your show, Mr. Ham.
Good afternoon. Like I mentioned, my name is Chris Ham with KDH Consulting Engineers. We are here presenting the conditional use for the PRD master plan for the Mineral Beach project. I'm sure as everyone aware, this has been here we've been on it for 6 years, so it has been here a while. Mineral Beach project is 113 proposed lot, single family home subdivision. The purpose of tonight's meeting is just for the PRD master approval. We will be back for final land development approval at a later time if the PRD conditional use is granted. The main purpose of the PRD plan, is to set the requirements for the PRD within the plan itself. For example, we're requesting a 20-foot front yard setback, a 7.5-foot side yard setback, and a 20-foot rear yard setback, compared to what the ordinance states for the underlying zoning. Most of these are items I believe were previously approved prior to most of us getting involved in this, so this is really trying to clean up some things and making sure everything is in line and everything is approved properly before we start construction. The plan really has not changed much at all in the last 6 years as far as the layout. The main entrance is off of Waterlong Road, which I believe we've finally got to a point with all parties involved, hopefully, that we're pretty much there establishing who owns it, hopefully being able to grant that and turn that entire road over to the township to become a township road for township maintenance. That is our main entrance. We will have an emergency access off of Beach Lane, that comes near the existing Beach House restaurant. The project will be developed in 2 phases, roughly about 75 lots in the first phase and the remainder going into the second phase. Sewage planning has been approved for phase 1. The plan's been reviewed by the sewage authority and approved. Water line plans have been conditionally approved based upon the remainder of our land development approvals. And that, I'm going to wrap up my presentation because, like I said, I believe everyone's pretty much seen things, and I will take any questions or.
All right, so what we always do is I will ask the board to go first and have questions. Mr. Spear, do you have any questions?
I've inquired about a PennDOT traffic study, because the congestion on that 88 with
There was-
Aging,
Wait.
you guys.
One at a time.
Sorry.
You're fine.
Oh,
No,
sorry.
you're good. She has to do the
Sorry.
stenography.
There was a traffic study done whenever this was originally proposed, probably 4 years ago, and that would be the traffic study we're using for 88.
That'd be 2020, correct? think that's
I
what it
believe
says
that
in
would be
your
the date that
document.
was in, yeah, I'd have to double check.
The conditions have changed considerably since 2020, have they not?
If PennDOT deems that they want to see a new one, we will update it. We have started the PennDOT HMP process for the intersection of 88 and Waterlong Road. So we're waiting for comments back from PennDOT.
Should we wait till that's done before we do this conditional approval? It's just part of the I'm new to the EA.
I can let Solicitor Maple speak, but the PRD grants the right for the plan. It does not actually grant us any approvals to build the plan.
Okay.
If the PRD is approved, then we do have to come back and get full land development and subdivision approval from the units.
Fair enough.
And if I misspoke, please.
No, it's good. It's a good question by Mr. Spears. It's a question I already have. Go ahead. Any other questions, Mr. Spears?
No, that seems to be my biggest issue because of the congestion on there now.
Okay, Ms. Dupree?
I had a question about fire flow, water pressure. I heard you say that you were waiting on approvals, but I know that you're pretty high up there. There's been issues with fire flow.
PA American did not indicate any issues on any of our plans as far as any concerns on fire flow.
What is the recommended fire flow for hydrant?
Off the top of my head, I do not know, but like I mentioned, we did.
I know that there was an issue with the plan across the street from you. I know that the Shire has a water tower because of the hill and.
That was one of the.
Wait a minute.
One at a time.
If you guys talk over each other, that you're gonna have dashes all through the transcript and it's gonna be hard to read. Thank you.
Otherwise, she's also going to throw something at you, too.
That was a question that was brought up during the development talks with PA American. We did provide our highest elevations of the plan. They did not seem to have any concerns for fire flow or pressure in the houses.
TJ, you have a comment?
Yeah, I can address your question there, Michelle. There's a letter from August 13th of 2024 from the water company that says that they did look into the pressure and the fire flow. The development will have a PSI of somewhere between 103 and 108 PSI at the highest ground elevation, which is 1152, and 141 PSI to 146 PSI at the lowest proposed ground elevation. They ran their model for the development and they said that they expect 1,500 gallons per minute of fire flow at the proposed hydrants while maintaining a static pressure of 20 PSI. And then they also wrote a letter in December of 2024 that they had reviewed Chris's water line drawings and they deemed them adequate. So I think they've addressed that fire flow concern.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All the questions I have at this time.
TJ, that letter you're referring to, do you have an extra copy of that?
Yes.
Let's make that exhibit. Is that the letter you're looking at?
This is the letter, because we ended it at the same time.
You have an unmarked letter?
Yeah.
We'll make that exhibit M. So is there a motion to place that letter, August 13th, 2024, from PAWC to Chris Ham as exhibit M? Need a motion to that effect?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any questions on the motion? All in favor?
Thank you. TJ, can you hand a copy of that over to the stenographer
Yes.
right now?
Whenever she's ready.
Any other questions, Michelle?
Not at this time, no.
Suzanne? Mr. Hanford, you have any questions?
Yes. I notice you have 7 retention ponds. How many?
One, sir.
Just one retention? If you have an inch or 2 inch rain in a 24-hour period, will that pond handle it?
Yes, sir. The entire stormwater management system has been reviewed by the previous engineer, Madison engineers, and Washington County Conservation District for adequacy, and has been approved by all 3.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Hanford?
No.
Mr. Sauter, any other questions?
Yeah, I have a couple questions.
And one thing I could ask you, you talk low, so if you can talk a little higher, if you don't mind. I apologize.
Okay, I have a couple questions. First question deals with the 2 entrances and exits. Okay, so the one going up is Waterlong Road, and the other one coming down is Beach Road.
Yes.
Is that the, I'm gonna screw up the term, easement goes all the way up to the communications tower?
If this plan is approved, the easement to the communications tower will be terminated
Right.
and realigned through the site, coming off of Waterlong Road a little bit farther up the hill from our entrance. We'll be still using a portion of the easement to get for our emergency access through Beach Road through that easement.
Okay.
But the easement going to the tower will no longer come through the plan. It will actually come off of Waterlong Road. If you're familiar with the site, there's actually kind of a quad trail there now that gets up to it. We'll be widening that out for the cell phone tower to get up to their tower.
Okay, but your emergency exit will go from up there and it'll come down and connect with Beach Road, and come up Beach Road to 88.
Yes, there's a cul-de-sac basically right at the stream on our side, on the development side. And I think we're still working out exactly how to either block that off. What we've done in the past is in other developments, put up a gate with a knockbox. So usually it's a couple members of the HOA have keys to the box, and then your fire departments, your police departments, and everything have that. So you can lock the gate so it's not used as an actual access unless it is needed because of something going on in the building.
You're reading my mind. Okay, my next question dealt with who has access to the emergency exit. And as I would think, it would be the 2 fire departments, the police department, possibly emergency ambulance services.
We would provide keys. The HOA would have keys, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
And then we would provide keys to the township on however many they want to distribute to whoever they feel needs to have access to that
And
for
that would be a
emergency
physical
services.
key, or will it be a card, or?
Usually they're physical keys. Physical keys tend to, be honest, fail less. And especially in that area, then you don't have to worry about power.
Regarding Waterlong Road, there's been some confusion over who owns what and all that at the bottom. Now, my understanding is that has been totally ironed out at this point in time.
That is my understanding.
Okay.
The main thing was ownership. This lawsuit began when it involved Long Road. It was our belief that basically the larger portion, what's the side road called?
Bloxham Lane.
From Bloxham Lane up to the church, it's owned, I believe, by the Long Brothers.
Yes, sir.
Are you both here tonight? Who's the Long Brothers? Do we have any Long Brothers here tonight? Okay, they're not here. There was an issue and we determined that that's the reason why the lawsuit was filed, because there was an issue about ownership of that road. And then from Bloxham Lane, how do you say that?
Bloxham.
Bloxom Lane to 88. That was actually part of a eminent domain situation with the federal government, because they had a Nike site at the top of the hill, I believe, at one time.
Mm-hmm.
And so we determined when this thing first began that the whole process was, when it was first set forth, was wrong. But I think right now, TJ, I think in terms of the public road from refresh my recollection, from 88 to Bloxham Lane, it's public road at this stage, I think.
Well, from my understanding, the applicant, the developer, has hired outside counsel to research the chain of title. And as part of that, I'm certainly not an expert in that field, so I'm going to not expound upon that too much. But what was done last fall and spilled over into the beginning of this year was a separate lot line revision to establish the Walter Long Road dedication area, which essentially sets forth between the developer and the 2 property owners who own those lots there, since there's agreements in place. That subdivision, that lot line revision, set forth the road dedication area, which proves the developer's legal interest to do what they're proposing to do in terms of improvements to the road. And that that road dedication area, like you're saying, Dennis, begins at the right-of-way for Route 88 and goes all the way up beyond the access to the development in question.
And somewhere down the road, and we're still early in the process, the developer, once they complete the process about the road, they're going to have to dedicate that by a deed to the township.
Right.
And then basically, once they do that by deed of dedication, then we go through the process of, and I'm doing this somewhere else right now, we'd have to go through the ordinance process and filing paperwork with the Court of Common Pleas. So they're in a if we grant this thing will be all put together.
It's a very similar situation to what we dealt with Hidden Hollow Road, with the Scarmazzi plan of lots on the other side. So.
You're reading my mind too. And my next question dealt with the culvert itself. Okay.
The bridge.
There's supposed to be, will you be doing the rehab work on the little bridge there, the culvert bridge, to meet whatever standards we have in place, or will the developer be providing township, I guess, the funding to take care of it?
My understanding is, as part of the building, if I misspeak, because I know this kind of went to the developer's agreement. My understanding is part of every building permit, at building permit issuance, there will be an additional fee paid into an escrow account for future maintenance of that culvert.
That's what we talked about. So, Don, this we're here today is a conditional use pursuant to your ordinance. And this is basically, and again, we look at the ordinance that we have to go through this process, but the next step's going to be somewhere down the road, he has to come with land development plans to the township. And what we want to do is we're going to have a developer's agreement. And one thing that Mr. Spear, you're bringing up is there's no point in the township being responsible for the cost of the entryway, because I'm dealing with this situation in South Strabane Township where we have, what's it called, Racetrack Road?
Yeah.
Racetrack Road, we have that development there. And I'm very concerned, but I keep telling the developer, we're not going to take over that lane until we have an agreement. And I don't want the same thing to happen here, because there may be, in a situation, we have to have an improvement. You may have to have traffic lights put in. Traffic lights are expensive. In place, you have to maintain those. Plus, if there's any improvements in terms of widening the road, I don't want the township to be responsible. That's going to be the developer situation. And when we do the conditional use, if you grant the conditional use, the situation about the HOP and the cost of these roads, all these things you're bringing up right now, which are good concerns, will say basically the township is not going to assume responsibility for those costs, which I don't think the taxpayers would want. Am I correct? So, okay?
I have one more
Sure.
question. And I don't know if it would be in this hearing or otherwise, and maybe TJ can answer me. The grading on the Harpoon Industries, has that easement been secured there? I know that there was grading on the property of Harpoon Industries.
Harpoon, at the entranceway there, it's actually a 50-foot right of way now. Harpoon Industries, actually, the way their parking lot, it encroaches onto Waterlong Road's right away. So we're going to just sort of blend into theirs, but there's actually no grading proposed on Harpoon Industry property.
Part of the property I was talking to was further back by the creek area. Behind the building.
I think we pulled everything back in within
Okay.
areas that we control.
Yeah, it's an ever evolving thing, so I didn't know where we were at with that part.
Yeah, and anything that we controlled near the culvert, I think, if I remember correctly, we tried to grant some extra easements for future work if anything needs done there as much as possible, if we control the property.
If I may ask TJ a question. TJ, this was an issue before, and I guess you've been more involved, you've been quite involved in this process. I think the question asked by Ms. Shell is a good question. Is there an issue regarding grading on Harpoon Industries?
There was originally, yes. Like Chris has indicated, there's been a number of revisions to his plan drawings and certainly changes made through that lot line revision process that I spoke about earlier. But on and Chris just provided me with the latest and greatest in terms of the drawings here.
And when did you receive those documents?
They were delivered today. The latest revision date on there is August 21st, 2024. So I think it's the same set that I have, but Chris just provided extra copies here.
Okay.
We did look at that situation, Dennis, and verified that the limits of their grading, their proposed contours, are within their road dedication area, within their property that they have right to. So I believe that's been addressed.
Any other questions, any other board members?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mr. Sardi.
Our zone, Tammy from Macmillan, provided a letter here which has 6 questions in it.
That's part of the exhibits which has been admitted.
Those are in the,
Okay.
already.
If you want to ask this question right now, you're fine. You're welcome to do that.
Well, the first question is, has the school district been made aware of the development to be prepared for transportation needs in the development? Township will notify the district under the MPC regulations. However, has there been discussion with the transportation director and superintendent? Will the bus pick up students at an individual house, or will there be one location? What is required if it's one location? Waterlong Road is a private roadway. Will school buses be able to access within the development, pick up and drop off students? Will the proposed roads be adopted by the township, which assume roadways will be, which assumed roadways will be adopted given more than 3 lots are accessing from each. And so what happens with Waterlong, or will it be adopted by the township? We've already brought that up. Does the development require another means of access, as there are more than 40 lots proposed as per section 242-70 of the subdivision and land development ordinance? There are several modifications of the zoning regulations requested on the overall layout plan, which I believe you mentioned. Is this a function of the zoning hearing board, or does the board of supervisors have authority, given it is a conditional use as a PRD? Is there a reason why none of the 3 impact studies were submitted as part of the application? Or comments?
Did you get a copy of hers?
I have not seen it, but I can answer first as far as the school district.
One second, let me do this. I have an extra copy here, I think.
I actually have an
Why don't you give him that?
Thank you.
And just for the record, we all got this sometime this afternoon, I believe. So I think the questions being asked by Mr. Seiler are at the bottom of that first page,
Yeah,
paragraph
on the
1.
last page.
We have not brought up any discussion with the school districts. We typically do not. It's just not usually something in our normal process. So that would answer one.
Well, the first paragraph 1A talks about, I'm assuming it talks about bus stops and so forth. I believe the bus stop situation is controlled both by the second-class township code and also by the school district. There's a procedure that you follow through. So that's something that would happen later on.
Yeah, and the cul-de-sacs are all designed to accommodate, I believe, one of the larger fire trucks. So I don't think the buses would have an issue with maneuvering through the cul-de-sac. I can't remember quite where the question was, is the bus going to stop at individual houses? I can't imagine there's any chance in that. They stop now at intersections, and a lot of plans now, they don't even come into the plan.
Is there enough, the cul-de-sacs, they do meet the state liquid fuels regulations about width, correct?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
And is there enough room for a fire truck to go through that cul-de-sac?
The paving radius is proposed to be 80 feet, which is the township standard specification.
So a fire truck should be able to turn around there, so.
I would expect so, yes.
Waterlong Road, I think we addressed.
We addressed that already.
The second entrance, Beach Road. Number 5, we are requesting several modifications, which is typical of the PRD, which I believe the board has the right to grant those modifications under the PRD regulations for the ordinance.
That is the zoning board?
This board.
This board.
Yeah. And as far as the impact studies, I know they've been submitted to the township multiple times. I'm not sure if they've made it again to here, but we can more than happily provide all the traffic impact.
When was the last traffic impact study done? Do you recall?
Yeah. Let me get my notes down. All right, so the traffic impact study is dated January 6, 2020. Excuse me. And there was a letter prepared by civil and environmental consultants. Dennis, I think this got entered into the list of exhibits.
Right, so that's,
It's dated April 23rd, 2024, which is the summary of results of the trip generation comparison. Basically, this letter is the applicant has updated their calculations for traffic impacts for their development for the difference between 104 houses and 112 houses. Originally in 2020, when they first did the traffic impact study, it was for 104 houses. Now they're proposing, what'd you say, Chris, 113?
13.
So this letter, April 23rd, 2024, which is in the exhibits, is an update of the traffic trip generation count. So
So we do
That's
have
about
some-
all I know about the status of the traffic study.
Does the traffic study change with, the amount of different things that have been built in that stretch since the original traffic study, or does it just address the change in houses within the development? There's nothing that changed as far as how the traffic may have increased in those few years already?
Well, typically the traffic study would analyze not just the development in question, but also the, the surrounding areas. That's usually identified as part of a traffic impact or traffic scoping meeting with PennDOT, especially if PennDOT's involved. And certainly PennDOT will review the traffic impact study from 2020 and this update from last April when they review the highway occupancy permit application, which sounds like will soon be submitted. And certainly because it's a PennDOT roadway there that we're intersecting with at Walter Long Road, PennDOT would have the final say as to the adequacy of the traffic impact study, and they may want, since there has been considerable development there since 2020, they may want an updated traffic study. We can't really answer that at this point, I don't think, Chris, so must correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, if I'm correct, TJ, we had some, I'm sorry, go ahead.
What if we want one, as Union Township, to do a new PennDOT traffic study on Route 88 from the beach house all the way down past the greenhouse? Because all CEC's evaluation was the increase from 104 to 113, which is negligible.
Right, and that's what they say in their letter, I agree with you, yeah.
That's a,
Problem with ownership of Walter Long Road, and I believe we had some discussions with representatives of PennDOT. I think Stephanie Whitlatch was one, or whatever. But my recollection was there may be a need to have a traffic impact study based upon the change in the nature of that whole study. That was my understanding that she was recommending at that point in time. So we may need to have that traffic impact, because I don't want the township to be responsible for any improvements.
Absolutely.
I mean, the fact of the matter is, sorry, Chris,
No, you're good.
that, there's a new business across the street from Walter Long Road now, and there's a housing development off of Hidden Hollow Road, the Scarmazy Highland Village plan of lots, which is 2 phases, and I believe 100 and some houses. There's 21 quads, so that's 84 units right there, plus 17 single-family houses. There's 101 dwelling units in the Scarmazy plan of lots, which have been, those were approved at some point in 2020 and built in 2021 and are still being built now. So I think there needs to be some recognition by the township as part of this conditional use and land development that traffic is a concern on Route 88, and there's been significant changes to the traffic flows even since the original study was prepared by the applicant in 2020. So I think that needs to be recognized.
why can't we just require it?
I think that's something we should require in the face of the thing. So I would think it needs to be a traffic impact.
I think it's gotta
And
be
Mr.
part of
Ham
the
agrees
deal.
also, correct, Mr. Ham?
If that's, I'd have to double check with Mr. Braun, but.
Sure.
Mr. Braun, yeah.
I think it's an important requirement.
You have the car wash approval too, right in there.
Like I said, when we talked to PennDOT initially, Mr. Spear, they recommended that about the problem in traffic. In fact, the difference between then and now.
Yeah, Dennis, I just, I'm all for the development. Hey, they could put 2,000 homes in there. I don't care. We've got to maintain that our responsibilities to everybody else that doesn't live there. The place needs a traffic study. The beach house gets crowded. There's Weber has some,
Car wash?
whatever the hell they're gonna do down there. So that's where I'm coming from.
Now, would that be a condition of the conditional use, or is that more of a?
But we have, if I'm correct, I looked at, well, first of all, you made an application. You're an RD district, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So, based upon your zoning ordinance, you made an application for conditional use pursuant to section 280-13, I believe, B, conditional use, and then we refer to planned residential uses, PRDs, and I believe that's section 280.90. So, I think we have some ability to make certain requirements underneath the conditional use, and I think that's going to be one of them, okay? But are you done asking questions, Mr. Pre?
Yes.
I have a, if I may ask a couple questions.
Go ahead.
I know we currently have a development in another town, South Shebane Township, where we have one entrance in. And the board decided to grant them the ability to have an emergency access or whatever. Well, what happened over there is they allowed the emergency access, but now there's some concern about the ability of emergency vehicles accessing that second emergency access. Is there an issue we have with this situation with, in this situation it's too tight and too much of an elevation? South Shebane Township.
I don't believe there's any issue with the actual access to that point. It's relatively flat. It's a straight shot, so there's no hard turns of any vehicle getting in or out of that point. And it's located at the end of the cul-de-sac, so it does have a good bit of room just in general there.
Okay, do you understand basically that if the board decides, we have I think 60 days from today to make it, we need to give approval, there's going to be an issue concerning replenishing the escrow account, because I understand the escrow account is maybe in a negative, I think, I don't know, but that's going to have to be brought up to snuff. Do you understand that?
I will let Mr. Brown know.
And you also understand basically the township has concern with the HOP coming off of Route 88. Do you understand that?
I do.
Yes.
I have one other question, if I may.
Sure.
So one of your neighbors up there is the church,
Yes, sir.
and I could foresee times of the year when you have a lot of people trying to get out along the road. You have times during the day when people are trying to get out of the church parking lots where you could have a tie-up, to be blunt. Have you thought about putting anything there, maybe a simple light or something that can be activated during those times when the church is having an event to kind of control traffic up there?
As far as a light where? On Waterlong or on 88?
On Waterlawn.
It's something we could definitely look at. I think a lot of times where the church events probably won't overlap the heavy trip counts for hopefully. But that's something I think we can discuss. But with that, any light that we put there, our hopes would also be would have to discuss it with the township, because at the end of the day, our hopes is to turn the road over to the township, so that the township would have to approve any traffic control device that we hope to put on what will eventually be one of their roads.
But in that situation, the traffic control device, they cost a lot of money. They cost a lot to maintain. So we're gonna have to do something like they did on Racetrack Road with, what is that called, Tanger outlets?
Yep.
There's gonna have to be similar type of agreement with Tanger outlets and that area up there, because it's costly.
I mean, I'm just envisioning people trying to get out of the plan, people trying to get out of the church, they're up on down Waterlong Road, it's not backed up.
Understood. Like I said, I don't really foresee an issue. The majority of the trips on a development like this are usually Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
Weekend mornings are actually kind of low on the number of trips usually coming in and out, but I can definitely pass your concern on to the developer.
Also, we have the pastor here from the church, I believe, don't we? Or we don't? We have two of them. So we have to make sure, I didn't want those people to have an issue either, but let's go back to that easement situation, or that emergency right-of-way. Is there a document, like an easement or anything, a record? TJ?
Not at this point, Dennis, no. And that is one of my comments in this October 8th, 2024 letter, which got entered into the record. But that's a concern of mine as well. I think that easement as it exists right now, it's owned by Unison Site Management. It's recorded under instrument number 2006-10066. So there's a recorded easement right now that runs from Route 88 past the Beach House Restaurant, I believe, right, Chris? It crosses the little stream there where there's a culvert, and then it continues up the hill on the rear of the Beach House restaurant, the rear of their banquet room building that's there, and it continues all the way up the hill. It's a gravel drive once you get beyond the parking area for the Beach House. And the problem that I foresee is that Chris's group is intending to utilize the easement as it exists right now across the Beach House property till they reach their property line, which borders on the rear of the Beach House restaurant. And then from there, on their own property, they're planning to vacate that easement so that they can proceed with their housing plan. So you basically have three parties involved. You have the owner of the Beach House restaurant, who the easement type is, or use is basically going to change. The characteristics of that easement are going to change. It's going to be for emergency access. It's no longer going to be for utility. So they're involved as the first party. The second party involved is Crown Castle, Unison Site Management, who owns that easement across Kevin Braun's property right now from Losanti's property all the way up to the top of the hill where the tower is at the top. And then you have Kevin Braun, who wants to basically repurpose that easement for the one portion and then extinguish the easement for the other portion. So where I'm going with this is I think that there needs to be some formal agreement between all of these parties involved that clearly delineates the purpose of that easement on both of the existing parcels that it currently exists on right now. And we've brought that up a couple times during our review. Bankston's brought that up a couple times, and that I know that's something that'll need to get worked out yet, but I don't believe that it's worked out as we sit here right now.
So there's an easement from Route 88.
Do you have the drawing, Chris? It might be helpful to use. Go ahead, Ben.
You have the drawing here?
What you're saying is, as of now, the emergency access that's on the plans does not have an easement to come through the Lysani property.
They have one, yes, they do.
All right, so, okay, I'm concerned, like, the board is, Mr. Spears raised, about, Mr. Sodder raised issues about the emergency access. Where's that on that map over there?
It's actually right, kind of comes off the page down to there. My understanding is Mr. Braun's worked out an agreement between the parties. I have not seen it yet, so I can't speak for certain if it's there or
The
not.
easement that I had saw stated for construction purposes only. So as far as after it's constructed, you don't know, but
I don't.
easement that comes.
So we don't, so there's a supposed agreement which we don't have.
That's my understanding. And I wasn't sure if he provided it to the township or not, but it sounds like he did not.
So I'm assuming he would have provided it to you to give to TJ, but you don't have it. So and we assume, they'll say you make an ASS out of you and me. All right, so what, TJ, do you have anything about this agreement? Do you have a better map that shows all this?
I think so. I'm trying to find it.
I at one time saw an easement from Joseph and Deborah Lysani that was for construction purposes. But it didn't say after that, like for emergency exit, permanent.
Yeah, and I'm not 100% sure, because I know there was some communication with the attorney that was working out the easements on water lawn and some other issues with the township and different people, so I wasn't sure if that was provided directly to you guys from them, so, but it did not come to our office if there is.
I don't have it, so TJ, because I know if I would have get it, received it, I would have sent it to TJ and the township.
Do you have the subdivision drawing printed?
I do not.
You don't have anything here, TJ?
I'm looking.
So, right now, the concern is about an agreement between Braun and whoever else. Braun is BRAU and
That's the full plan, is that the overall
So Deborah and Joseph Lysani, looking at the mailing, Lisanti.
Probably right.
exit.
You know your drawings better than I do. This one might be the best one to have.
Hey guys, keep one at a time. Please.
Yeah, we're on the
All right,
pause.
we'll take. Here's what we'll do. We'll take a short break. You guys figure out what you need. Someone has to go to the restroom at all? I do. We'll take a short break right now. It's approximately what time is it? Not 6:60. I'll take a break. We just 10 minutes for you.
People need, I'm not, they're not. And I bet you they haven't talked about it. And the other thing, I live upstairs. The cars from the church on Sunday morning, they lined all the way up the hill, waiting to get on 88. It can only be worse now. I sit here and laugh. Inside.
Where's the PRD?
Okay. Let me get a little bit of my cigarette. But I sit here and laugh thinking, they need a red light.
That's another time though, right? Because it isn't all of them. That's a lot. What's up?
Oh, yeah, just my boss at R.A. Smith.
Oh,
All I need is boss at R.A.
much?
Okay, I saw your hat. I wasn't sure.
I worked there from 05 to 2013.
So, Mr. Chair, is this boring yet or not?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No, you set me up there, right?
That?
You set me up. I had to say.
Comments on certain
Liz told me to come here, so that's what I did.
How was your work doing, Mike?
Okay. It's like every other place, not enough people. Like everywhere else. Like a ghost town.
Appeal to public questioning.
So, is there anyone working here anymore? Is it pretty vacant up in that big building?
A lot of times I sit in the newsroom by myself. Or I've been working from home a lot recently.
It used to be a big factory.
Yeah.
That's the plan.
Yeah. We, like I said, we're short-handed like everybody else.
TJ, whether they realize it or not, like I owned the property that Park Food Industry bought.
Mr. Knight has.
We lived there too.
Oh, you have nothing.
Coming down from the church every Sunday morning, the traffic backed all the way up the hill. Oh, I'm dead serious. All the way up the hill waiting to get on 88. That was 20. We bought our house in 2002. So it was that long ago. It's going to be a disaster.
Yep. And I remember when I was a kid, I delivered the Sunday Press.
Sunday Press.
Yeah.
That was a while ago.
Yeah. Well, I'm not kidding.
I believe you.
Yeah. That'll be on our agenda.
20 PSI.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Like a garden. Something in here. Is 20 PSI good enough for flags?
Yeah, that's what I was. We need something.
So you go to Chicago for a pipe thing.
There's farmers. It's in Gary, Indiana.
Well,
As soon as you cross over the
Kenny, you feel better?
Yes, he can actually talk. And he can actually walk.
if you look at the now, you see so you
not at all.
this cul-de-sac is not like full use.
The funny thing, when we lived down there, you know, we lived in a 3-room apartment upstairs. I had my dogs. I was showing in the American Wing at that time. I had kennel runs in the back. Dog houses, one of those silver car tents covering them. Nobody knew because it was behind the building. It was a blast. And cleaning a 3-room apartment is a hell of a lot different than cleaning the house I got. I love my house. Don't get me wrong. I love my house. I hate it. And what kind of dog do you have? I have a German Shepherd. And believe me, I'm telling you, I take fistfuls. So when the ambulance came today for Penny, I put the dog outside because she would. I should have, but she wouldn't come back in to go in a crate. So I left her outside, barking her head off, and then she jumped in the pond. I'm like, she stinks. She stinks, and well. When I showed in the American Ring, you always back them before you went in the show ring and you blow them out. It didn't matter if you were at the site and it was ice cold water in the middle of winter. They got a bath. Well, I have hot and cold water in my garage with a hose. It's me that's older. It's me that's 22 years older. I ain't bathing her in this cold weather. Maybe tomorrow. I think it's supposed to be nice. Is it?
He actually said, take over that Radowski property.
Don't say that. I want to pick dandelions and make jelly. I've made it before. I got a bunch in my yard. Especially since I quit quit using weed and feed. Poison. 52? She needs a bath before Friday. She stinks, although she's still wet. Maybe she wants
Appreciation Week.
And I'm with a towel, you know, like this, and she's looking at me.
Thanks.
Okay.
How old is your dog?
Ready.
Puppy. Still a puppy, sort of. A teenager. My bitch is 11.
All right, guys, listen up. Okay. We're back in session. It's approximately 6:24, and the question was concerning this right-of-way or this easement. Do we have a good drawing there? So that's the drawing we're looking at.
Yes, sir.
All right. Next time I see you, I'm going to bring you a laser print pointer for you. Okay?
I had one. Batteries are dead.
All right. I'm just teasing. Go ahead. Can you show us on the map what we're talking about?
I'm not sure which way to say it best. Here's the cul-de-sac. This will be the proposed emergency access. It's actually the same road that they used to use for access to the pavilions and everything else up over the hill.
Okay. So the easement from Route 88 to that cul-de-sac.
I don't know exactly where that stands.
So we don't know if there's agreement or not, correct, TJ?
That's what we need the agreement for, yes.
Also, now you were talking about an easement also going through the property. What were you talking about?
The current easement for the cell phone tower, which is located here, basically follows the roadway that came up past a couple of there was a pavilion in this area, I believe one over here. It kind of meandered up over the hill following the path that was to the existing pavilions that I'm not sure if one point in time they used to rent out the pavilions for different things. Is the path it used to follow. If the development goes through, the easement for Crown Castle to at least access their tower will come off of the top of Waterlong Road up over the hill to their plant, to their tower.
So that's what I'm saying. They're preserving the part between their property line and the highway. And they're extinguishing the easement once they get onto their property. Because they have this new lot configuration and they're discontinuing the easement and relocating it over to Walter Long Road.
All right.
And I think all that just needs to be clarified in an agreement, Dennis, for how that is handled.
So right now, it's confusing.
It's murky.
Because we're not actually extinguishing the easement on Mr. Lasante's property, because we don't own the property, so.
You don't have, there will be an easement
Mhm.
agreement between the owner of that property and Ron. Or whoever the developer is.
Yeah, I believe so. I believe
We
that's
don't,
Mr.
but we
Long.
don't have that yet.
Yeah, I have not seen that, but I'm not sure where that is in discussions.
So that's the major issue we have right now. That has to be clarified.
I agree completely, yes.
And I agree with, I know TJ's brought that up several times to the developer, and I think both of us have been told that it's there. I just don't know if either one of us has seen it.
Could we note on that easement that nothing ever blocked it?
Well, that's gonna have to be part of it, because if that's an emergency access, we don't want, it has to be open, but there's gonna be some type of gate or something with a lock on it.
Mhm.
And that gate's gonna be, I guess they're gonna use something similar to a lockbox or something for the gate.
And I believe Michelle's comment is more, not so much the gate, make sure that it's written in the easement that
That
the
there's
beach
not
house, the
vehicles,
beach house
yeah,
doesn't
the
use it for
vehicles.
parking. But it would be something similar to a knockbox that, like I said, it's usually the HOA president and a couple of people for the HOA has the keys, then it's distributed to, the local police force, which I believe that's on Sun Valley.
I have another question.
And,
Okay, Michelle has a question. Go ahead, Michelle.
Is the subdivision line, is it still going through a building?
Mm-hmm.
Will that be corrected?
So the building that you're talking about is not the restaurant itself, not the pavilion building, the beach
Not the
house
beach
room,
room.
but it's the
Behind
block building that's on the other side of the stream. And yes, this baffles me a little bit, but the subdivision that was drawn before goes through that block building, a small corner that goes through that block building. And there's a note on that subdivision. Chris, this is the Shea Development and Lasanti subdivision that sets forth the boundary that we're looking at now. There's a note on that subdivision that says that that building will be demolished. And the property owner who owns the building signed off on the plat. So I believe that has been handled, but yes, to answer your question directly, there is a parcel line going through the building, and the drawing indicates that the building will be demolished. So
yeah,
I think that's been taken care of.
like TJ mentioned, that all parties involved that have any, I guess I'd say, any rights to the building, signed off on the subdivision plan stating that it's to be raised.
Any further questions from any board members at this time? At this point in time, we'll open up to questions from the public to Mr. Ham if they have any questions or concerns about this. In the first row, the gentleman with the Nike hat, do you have any questions?
Sir,
You state, do you have a question or not?
no, sir, not this moment.
All right, do you have a concern or anything?
Yes, sir, my name is Jimmy Roman, I'm with the church.
R-O-M-A-N?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Could you stand up, please, so I can see you
Hey,
talking?
could you speak loud also?
Yes, sir, how's that?
Thank you, sir.
I just, this may not be the venue, but maybe during planning commission or other meeting, I had some thoughts on the stormwater drainage. I thought there was some ponding and stuff that could be alleviated, just some minor items like that. Again, I don't know if this is the venue to address that, but I had spoken to Ken earlier and asked if Chris earlier if we could talk later or off record or whatever.
Sir, what is your position with the church?
I'm a member.
Are you here officially on their behalf, or?
He's a volunteer helping with us.
All right. And your name, sir, is?
I'm Pastor Ken Barner.
How do you say that? Is it?
B is in basketball, Barner.
Okay. As I get older, my hearing's going also, I guess.
Sorry.
All right. Anything else, sir?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The gentleman sitting next to you with the brown coat and the orange or whatever shirt underneath, like, no questions, comments? Sir, you have any questions or comments?
Nothing for me.
Sir, do you have any questions or comments?
I was wondering about those holding ponds.
So that's that would be part of a development situation. Land development, I would assume.
The stormwater management ponds? There's just one pond, right?
Just one.
Why
So your
are there
name, just for the
only
record, that's right. Your name, sir, for the record?
Albert Senic,
How do you spell that, T?
Senic,
And your address?
1504 Highland Drive.
You live in Scarmazy Development, or
Yes.
the fancy place?
Thank you. We have 2 holding ponds for 101 homes. How are you getting away with only 1?
More, that's just what the design dictated. More than likely, our pond's probably the size of both of your ponds put together.
If I'm correct, TJ, retention or detention ponds, I keep getting them confused. Is based upon the size and so forth, there's some type of calculations for that?
Yes, there's specific calculation criteria to determine that. And I'm not the design engineer, Chris is, but, you know, speaking from a topography standpoint and the way that the land is situated there, everywhere where Chris and his developer are planning to develop basically flows down gradient towards Route 88 highway there in the stream there. So, whereas the Scarmazy plan of lots is somewhat different. They're at the top of the hill there, and some of that drainage actually does flow to the back towards.
Yeah, we have a big one in the back.
Yeah, there's a sizable pond in the back and a sizable pond in the front. So, you know, more than likely just design related in terms of where Chris and his team figured it was best to perform their stormwater management, handle their volume control and their rate control in that pond. And Dennis, to answer your question, yeah, there's specific design criteria in Union Township stormwater ordinance and also, you know, set forth by PADEP and administered by conservation districts for managing stormwater, which they've prepared a stormwater management plan which satisfies those entities.
And if we were to ever develop, which it really can't because it gets too steep, but the back side of the property, we would have a second pond kind of on the back, more than likely on the back side. Because when you design the ponds, you try to keep the water going the direction that it's going before you start. And like TJ mentioned, pretty much all our water goes towards the old swimming pool.
And the other comment I've made to the 2 people up front, that traffic study is outdated. We've moved in, they're building on Turkey Foot Road, all those homes out there, and there's a lot more traffic just in the last 3 years, because I was number 3 moving in and he was number 2. So we've been there since the beginning of time.
When was that, by the way?
That was February 19th, what year was that? 3 years ago? 23. And it should be done this summer.
You say it should be done this summer, what do you need? You mean completed?
Completion of buildings, yes, supposedly.
All right.
But that almost needs a turning lane where we are in order to get out and to get in. And you're talking about the same situation down the road. That's going to be a lot of stop and go traffic. They did put fast car lines in front of Tractor Supply, so that's going to try to slow people down. But it needs a lot more than just fast car lines.
Anything else, sir?
No, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome.
What was your name?
Albert Senic, Senic.
I got that, I couldn't remember.
Okay.
All right. Pastor, you have any questions or comments? None?
No comment.
The gentleman sitting with the green hat and his mustache, any questions or comments?
No comments, right?
I think there's a gentleman next to you with glasses.
Yeah,
Your name?
I'm also Highland Village.
State your
Joe-
name, sir.
Joe McKittrick.
Is it Joseph?
McKittrick.
Address?
1019 Courtyard Drive, Highland Village.
Go ahead, sir. Questions?
So
Comments?
Just an additional comment on the traffic study. I will echo what my neighbor has just said. You know, the traffic is certainly picked up. And then the other thing with coming down Hidden Hollow, and if you're making a left-hand turn towards Tractor Supply, it's a bit of a blind corner there. And so the more traffic coming up that way, and as Al had mentioned, there's a lot of traffic coming down from the developments over around Turkey Foot, coming the opposite direction, past there. And then the other comment would be with the businesses at the beach house, the tiki bar, and what have you. When the traffic study is done, it should be done when those things are in full swing. During the season that they're open, the weekends that they're having hundreds of people there for a car show and different things. That all is part of that traffic study.
Anything else, sir?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Barr, any questions or comments?
No,
Mr. Jerry, any questions or comments? Both shook their head no. Okay.
What's their name?
Mr. Barna is B-A-R-N-A. Mr. Dare is D-A-E-R.
D-A-E-R-R.
Okay. All right. No other questions or comments from anybody in the public? We have the press. 1 second. We have the press. Or any questions or comments? Your name, sir, for the record.
Paul Patera, P-A-T-E-R-R-A.
Ms. Puglisi, state your name.
Denise Puglisi, P-U-G-L-I-S-I, 4057 Heath Road, Finleyville, PA.
Okay, question or comments?
I have a question.
Sure.
There's 2 documents from Washington County Planning about the flooding situation whenever they took Mineral Beach out of the floodplain. Has everybody here seen that? Everybody working on this stuff? TJ? You gentlemen? Have y'all seen those documents? Yes?
I
No?
believe so, yes.
Okay,
That has nothing to do with anything? I'm just curious.
Is there, I remember something about floodplain being modified or something. Are you familiar with that, TJ?
Yeah, I believe, and again, this is before I was working for the township.
And before my working for the township also.
But I do believe there was a letter of map revision that was submitted to FEMA pertaining to the floodway that's delineated. Chris has it delineated in green on this map, conveniently, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a revision to the FEMA delineated floodplain or floodway?
Floodplain.
Floodplain.
There is no delineated floodplain for this area.
So,
what did you say? I'm sorry.
There's no delineated floodway for the area. There is
It's a floodplain.
There is a floodplain. Yeah, there was a letter of map revision done, submitted to FEMA. Actually, it was prior.
2020.
Yeah, it was prior. That was prior to us as well.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, I'm not 100% sure who even prepared it. I have seen the low mark come through. The main thing it actually removed was the swimming pool.
Did you read the comments about everything downstream getting flooded?
I didn't read the comments.
I'll give you the documents.
Well, there is no a floodway. Would you explain what a floodway is to the folks here, TJ?
Yeah, sure. Basically, there's a difference between what they determine to be the floodplain and the floodway, and it's based on amount of precipitation and the extents that the floodwaters may rise relative to the stream and the channel itself. So,
Now you really can't build in the floodway.
Or floodplain.
Well, if you build in a floodplain, I think the Floodplain Management Act came out back in the 1980s or something.
Mm-hmm.
And basically it set forth stipulations as how you build properties in a floodplain. You have all these special screws or pipes and all that stuff. You can build in a floodplain, but you have to go through a process to build.
Mm-hmm.
And according to what I see right there, there's no houses or whatever in the floodplain, correct?
Correct. We are not impacting the revised floodplain based upon the letter of map revision. The floodway, you can't do anything in the state of Pennsylvania within the floodway without
Correct.
obtaining a Chapter 105 permit through the DEP.
Correct. Okay.
Thank you.
And I did bring up a comment during one of our back and forth reviews with Chris and his group about their proximity to the FEMA delineated floodplain, and requested that his group correspond with DEP and Conservation District to determine if there were any additional permitting requirements that would be needed subject to Chapter 105 of the Pennsylvania Code. And Chris's group did coordinate with Washington County Conservation District, and they did confirm that they have the permits that they need relative to their proximity to the floodplain. Is that correct, Chris?
That is correct. And just one note on that, they're not really, There is an active MPDS permit for this site. It's been approved. It was renewed in December along with every other general MPDS permit in the state of Pennsylvania.
What are you saying, MPDS?
NPDES.
All capital letters. Anything else, Mr. Ham?
I do not.
Anything else? Any other questions of the board at this point in time for Mr. Ham? No. Ms. Dupree's asking about Peach Creek sanitary flow. What's the question, Ms. Dupree?
Well, I couldn't remember if in the beginning when you were discussing water and so forth, Peters Creek Sanitary can take the,
Yes. Well,
you have like a developer's agreement with them that they.
we have a developer's agreement, and the sewage facility planning module has been approved by the DEP for the first phase, which is 75 lots. Whenever we come back in, if everything's approved for phase 2, and we create the subdivision for phase 2, we would have to reapply back through Peters Creek and DEP for the other 58 lots. That's just due to it's more due to the fact that Peters Creek flows from Peters Creek to South Park to Jefferson Hills and to Clarion, and everyone's under a consent order from the DEP. So they allow so many taps per year, a new tap. So we constantly work with the authorities that are under consent orders. They usually ask us, when are you looking for phase 2? And you simply tell them, we're probably looking at 2027. They apply to the DEP to allocate taps to them, and then we will apply to obtain the taps.
Okay, but you don't have a developer's agreement yet.
No, we do have a developer's
You
agreement.
do?
Yeah, you actually, with Peters Creek, you have to sign a developer's
Yeah.
agreement before they will sign the sewage facility.
3 years
Planning
ago, I
module.
saw you at a Peters Creek Sanitary
Yep.
meeting about ductile pipes and fill, and then it seemed like it was all.
Yeah, to be honest, that might be one thing that does change, kind of, not that it has much bearing on this, is they did allow us to go from ductile iron pipe to SDR 26, mostly because at the time you just couldn't get ductile iron pipe. More than likely, we probably will have to use some ductile iron pipe due to some of the depths, but that's more of a Peters Creek and land development issue. But no, we do have approved sanitary flows for this and an approved sanitary layout design from Peters Creek.
Based upon that question, is there, and I've been involved with too many sewage systems in my lifetime, is there capacity, the line servicing that proposed development, phase 1 and phase 2 cumulative, is there enough capacity in the trunk line to service that whole development?
I believe so, because
You believe so, or do you know?
Peters Creek never brought up any issues of a capacity issue in their line for that trunk line. And even though we only got the first 75 lots approved under DEP planning, they are aware that there is 112, well, at the time it was 112, now it's 113 lots. And they did not express any concerns about any future overload of that trunk line.
Okay. And so the total development that's being presented to the township right now is how many lots?
113.
Is there still a pickleball court there? It's taken out?
It's gone.
Okay.
That's what we pull.
That's what we
Dennis,
Yes.
you may want to, I know that the tap allotment for Peters Creek issues 200 taps. It's up from last year. And, you may want to check with them about a capacity letter. Most developers I've seen usually get capacity letters.
See, that's what I think you're right. That's what we should have that to be accompanying this.
Yeah.
Can you?
Yes. Yeah, I will check on that.
So what I suggest you do we have a copy of the developers agreement between PCSA and Braun? So, Mr. Ham, I'm going to request on behalf of the board that we get a capacity letter, which Mr. Sider is correct. There should be a capacity letter for that development from PCSA. And we also like to have a copy of that developers agreement between PCSA and Mr. Braun. When you receive those, can you forward those over to the township engineer, TJ?
Yeah, I will also re-forward the approved planning. I think you
That's
should
what I
have a
have.
copy.
The
But I'll re-forward another copy.
If you could, please. Then, TJ, forward that copy to each supervisor and myself.
Dennis, if I recall correct, that capacity letter also includes, Clear Municipal Authority, accepting the sewage that comes from the
That's
plant.
the capacity letter, that's what
It's a
he
good point, I'm glad
stated.
you mentioned that tonight.
I think I mentioned it, he worded it different.
He's a better wordsmith than you, I
He's a
guess.
better wordsmith.
Yeah, and like I said, we actually do already have capacity letters for like I said, for the 475 from Peters Creek, from Jefferson Hills, from South Park, and from Clark.
South Park, and then all the way to Peters Creek.
No, we don't have to buy them up front.
All right, one at a time, please. Okay, anything else from Mr. Hand? I'll ask Mr. Seiler,
Good.
Mr. Hanford, any more questions for?
I have one thing. They're not gonna add water going down into the floodplain, are they?
They should have a stormwater management plan that minimizes the impact of any water going in. Correct, DJ?
Because it's not handled now.
I was up at Canton Township the other day. We have flooding there along, I guess the Bronson House or somewhere down there. We have major issues with businesses getting flooded. It's a major impact right now we're dealing with. So maybe that's something we have to take a look at down the road, because over in Canton Township, we have businesses being flooded because of the Chartiers Creek.
Sins of the past. I mean, honestly, that's what it.
And now Canton Township is having to put in a detention pond to cure some of the problems. It's costly.
I was flooded by this for me.
But that's something I think we should take a look at.
It's all fixed now, but.
The requirements for stormwater that we talked about briefly earlier for both the township and for the state require that your post-development stormwater flow, your amount of volume that you're releasing, and the rate at which you release it back to the receiving water be reduced below the pre-construction determination. So as part of the design for Chris's stormwater pond, he's computed the discharge rates and the discharge volume for the stormwater that's released from his pond, and those calculations demonstrate that they are lower than what's making it to the stream at this time. So that, Carl, to answer your question, that's Pennsylvania law as well as Union Township ordinance, that he make the situation no worse than it is now. In fact, make sure that his discharge is less than what makes it there today.
We need to have that, because now we don't have the proper
Right.
situation.
Right, and to Dennis's point, there's remedial action that you can take once you have a problem. Places will, build stormwater ponds. They'll implement release rates for future development that say you can only release 90% of the flow that's getting there now, 80%, however restrictive you want to be. But again, you're kind of trying to make up for development that was done before any of these current stormwater regulations are in place, and that's a difficult thing to do. But his calculations demonstrate that for this housing plan, no more quantity volume of runoff and a slower discharge rate are proposed as a result of the construction of the streets and the houses and what have you. So,
TJ, did they do the calculations on the completed project or just the first phase?
they did everything, Larry. It's both phases, right, Chris?
Yeah, it's the entire build out.
Anything further, Carl? Carl, anything further?
I'm okay now.
For the good question, though.
Yeah, great question.
Suzanne, any questions? Michelle, any questions? Mr. Spear, any questions?
No.
All right. So, we reached that stage. Now, we're going to give Mr. Stevens his opportunity to go through his exhibits and what his position is on the application for the conditional use. Mr. Ham, you can stand there, you can sit down, it's up to you.
Well, the good news about going last is that we've already talked about a lot of the stuff that's on my list.
All right, there is, most of the exhibits are actually exhibits that you submitted,
Mm-hmm.
and except for like the proof of publication and so forth. So,
Yep. So I'm going to mainly draw the board's attention to our office's letter from October 8th of 2024, which is the most recent review that we've done. The first page basically summarizes the history as we understand it and the back and forth that Benson has had with Chris.
and this would be Exhibit C.
Thank you.
All right, go ahead.
The comments begin on the second page. The first comment under subdivision and land development talks about the paperwork that's required to set forth the new homeowners association, the HOA covenants and documents. A performance bond will be required that the developer posts with the township for all of the improvements which are intended to be public. And as Dennis mentioned this earlier, but we will need to enter into a developer's agreement with the developer, which outlines everybody's responsibilities relative to the project that we're discussing here. The second comment on my list we talked about already, but essentially that's the emergency access road and the specifics that we're looking for from the developer with respect to clarifying that easement. So there's a couple items there, and I won't read those, but that's what that comment entails. The third comment on the list is reference subdivision code 242-61. We're asking that the developer provide documentation from Pennsylvania American Water Company that their water system design is adequate and it meets to their approval, which they have done. So that comment has been resolved since October when we wrote this letter. Those are the letters I mentioned earlier that state the water pressure and the fire flow and the design is adequate and so forth. The fourth comment on the list, moving towards the bottom of page 2, deals with easements. There's the emergency access easement, which we've talked about at great length here, and then there's also 2 additional easements which are a major consideration of this subdivision plat. Chris mentioned that they're relocating the remainder of the Crown Castle communication tower access easement to the other side, and it will be serviced from Walter Long Road and a new easement which is drawn from Walter Long Road to the pad. Our office is recommending that the developer provide a fully executed copy of the new easement agreement with the utility owner, stating that they're okay with relocating the easement that they have now. That should be obvious. And similarly, there is a 20-foot wide electric easement that runs from Route 88 kind of straight up the hill. Chris, can you point that out where that is? Basically, it serves that communication tower as well, to the best of our knowledge. And just based on its current alignment, Chris is proposing some housing lots there, so they've drawn up paperwork to relocate that easement as well to Walter Long Road and basically come out around their proposed housing layout to be able to relocate that. So instead of going straight up the hill, it'll make a couple 90 bends and jog back over and get to the communication tower. Similar to the Crown Castle thing, I think both of these easements that they're going to relocate, they're owned by others. There needs to be an agreement in place, an updated paperwork that these facility owners are okay with relocating their easements. At the bottom of page 2 starts the stormwater management comments. This sort of ties in with Carl's question from a moment ago, but there's 4 comments under the header Stormwater Management, Chapter 225. In my opinion, each of those comments have been adequately addressed by the developer. Chris and I have had some back and forth since this letter was written, and these items have been addressed under stormwater. So I think we can zip through that relatively quickly. On page 3 of 4, under the header Walter Long Road comments / outstanding issues, the first comment deals with Dennis's earlier point about the ownership of the roadway and who owns what with respect to Walter Long Road. And I believe that this has been also addressed by Chris and Keith Higgins and Kevin Braun when they produced the Walter Long Road lot line revision, which set forth the road dedication area. So I believe this has been addressed. Item 2 under Walter Long Road is the culvert / bridge is about 220 feet going up Walter Long Road off of Route 88. We talked about that already tonight. And I didn't make this point earlier, but the only other point I would make about the bridge, depending on which direction we go here, if it is going to be a fee per building lot that's set forth into an escrow account, we'll need some cost estimate from Chris's group, estimating the cost of the repairs to that bridge and some justification for that fee. So that's a specific of that mechanism that still needs to get resolved here, but it's something we shouldn't lose sight of either. I know I'm going quickly through this list. Are there any questions at this point? Okay. Item 3. I know I talked about this with Chris quite a bit, but there's a water meter pit right now that exists under Walter Long Road. It's kind of across the way from the subway, and it's in the cartway. There's a steel lid on there, steel lid there. And Chris has a note on the drawing set now that meter pit will be relocated outside of the cartway. That was a concern of ours, that meter pit is within the township road potentially. So that's been taken care of on the drawing set, and that, as part of these improvements, that meter pit that's there now will be moved outside the cartway so that it's not a vehicle hazard situation.
If I can comment, that meter pit will actually be moved up to near the intersection of the development and Water Long Road outside the cartway at that point, and then it will continue up over the hill. And the meter pit will be completely removed from the cartway and within Water Long Road down by the subway area.
You said Subway?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Sandwich.
Okay. Oh,
Subway sandwich, not the Subway. Yeah, we have a Subway here. How does that affect the private water line of the Long manufacturing that comes from, I guess they would start?
It would, the new meter pit and all the connections would have to be made before the existing meter pit and anything would be terminated. So there would be no interruption to service to.
So their private line would go to wherever the meter pit.
I didn't know if I'm allowed to ask a question, but because
For your first out, you have to state your name
Okay.
for the stenographer.
Name and address, stand up,
Albert
please.
Finney, 19 Walter Long. Albert Finney, 19 Walter Long Road. And my question was just because Walter Long has a transite line that goes up the hill with their water supply, so that will be terminated then, correct?
Yes.
From the bottom.
Yes.
Okay. I just because they're our neighbor, I want to.
What he said is their private line will break off of the new water pit. It'll
Okay.
be higher up
Okay.
to the development entrance, and it will be done before it gets terminated to the old water pit
Okay.
that's down at the.
Okay.
And in junction, we're actually we will tie into, according to the way we have the plans laid out with Pennsylvania America, we're tying into the water main on, I'm not going to slaughter the Bloxham?
Bloxham.
Bloxham.
Close enough.
Al lives right on the corner of
Yeah,
Bloxham.
because it's strange. The water main that feeds Bloxham actually comes straight from 88 to about halfway down. It actually does not come up Water Long Road, which I'm not sure why, but we're going to tie into that point. So mostly so they can create a loop for everything. Because the water companies do try to loop the lines as much as possible.
Where is their sewer line? Their sewer line that comes down
The private sewer line from the manufacturing company?
and from the church.
I'm not sure. Chris, did you locate that when you surveyed?
I don't think it's in the roadway. I'm not sure where it is.
I think it's right next to it. That's what I'm asking.
No.
No? You know?
Pastor Ken Barner, Library Baptist Crossroads Ministries. It goes down to the backside of our property.
So I think Walter Long Manufacturing comes down the road. I think I found something a year ago.
Now that you mention that, I remember seeing an old map.
I gave you their application to PCSA.
Yeah.
Just to be cognizant of, I think it runs right along the road, and I think it runs along the right-hand side of the road, which will be impacted from going in to the development.
Right-hand side as you're going up or down the hill?
Going up on the right.
Okay.
If I recall correctly, I think there's a manhole over there also. On that right
I think I had pulled that documentation, it's probably in the Mineral Beach file, but from when they got the storage application to PCSA and ran that lateral. Remember, that was a concern, so if we could note that to make sure that their sewer lateral isn't impacted.
Yeah, make sure it's preserved, yeah. Yeah, it's a good point. Okay, anybody else before I resume?
Yes, one other question.
Yes.
About those lines going up to the tower. You said they're gonna be replaced, are they gonna be underground or above?
I believe they're underground.
They're gonna be underground.
I think a portion's gonna be like running along across the bottom. They're gonna be overhead like they are, but I believe once they get to Water Long Road, they're gonna go under.
Okay.
If you could state your name once again, just for our
Albert
notes.
Senic, S-E-N-I-C.
I'm sorry, no.
Go ahead, TJ.
I'm good. I'm just making sure the stenographer's calling.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we talked about the bridge. We talked about the meter pit. Last comment on page 3 is the point that Michelle brought up earlier about proposed improvements. At one time, there was a stormwater end wall and a riprap apron and some proposed grading contours that were shown outside of the existing road right-of-way for Walter Long Road, which is owned. It's on property owned by people other than Kevin Braun, which is a point that we brought up in our October 8th letter. And I'll double check this, but my belief at this point is that everything that they're proposing to build now is within that road dedication easement area, which was thoroughly researched by Scott Kennedy and the counsel for Kevin Braun and presented to the board and approved and I believe recorded at this point. Subdivision was recorded.
I believe it's been recorded.
I know the township signed it here. I don't know if the developer actually went and recorded. I can't speak for that, but I know that it was fully signed here by the township.
I'm almost positive Keith recorded it.
Okay. So, long story short, item 4 I think has been addressed by that Walter Long Road lot line revision subdivision. And then item 5, I've moved on to page 4 now. Under item 5, the PennDOT highway occupancy permit remains as an outstanding item. I think everybody acknowledges that. And then under the general comments section, it's a disclaimer comment more than anything else, Chris, but as a condition of any approval for by the township, our office would recommend that the developer get any other permits that are required at the federal level, the state level, approval by PCSA, and so forth. That's generic in nature. And then the second comment under general comments is the topic that Chris led with here today. Obviously as part of this conditional use, they're requesting some diminished lot features, a lesser lot frontage. Typically in the RD district, you would need a 100-foot wide lot line. In this case, they're proposing 57 feet. In the RD district, the minimum front yard setback, the front yard depth is required to be 50 feet. As part of this conditional use, they're requesting a 20-foot front yard setback. The minimum side yard setback for the RD district is traditionally 20 feet. And as part of this conditional use, they're requesting to reduce that to 7.5 feet, which would leave you with 15 feet in between the two buildings. And then those were all mentioned by Chris earlier. The last point, and I don't know if you mentioned this or not, Chris, but they are requesting a modification from the ordinance for the horizontal and vertical curves for their street layouts. Traditionally, the subdivision ordinance here in the township requires that both for a horizontal curve and a vertical curve, that the centerline radius be no lesser than 200 feet. And as part of this layout, they're requesting to reduce that to 150 feet. They want to tighten up their curves to maximize their buildable space. So I just wanted that point to be brought up as well, that they are requesting a modification from the typical roadway geometry that's standard in the township.
Do you recommend that?
there's a similar modification request being made at Tuscany Estates right now. And I'd have to go back and look at Highland Village to see what their curve radius is. It's a 25% reduction in center line radius, going from 200 feet
They have
to...
sidewalks.
Okay, one at a time. Go ahead, keep going.
Just to finish the thought, they're essentially requesting a 25% reduction in the curve radius from 200 feet to 150 feet.
Go ahead, Mr. Sennick. What?
Yes, sir. Will they have sidewalks at least on one side of the development?
Both sides.
Both sides.
Yeah, there might be a couple places that if there's not houses on both sides, I think it's down towards the cul-de-sac. I think we have one spot that we only have it on the house side. But yeah, there will be sidewalks in front of any residence.
So when I look at Exhibit C on page 4, those general situations, they're making these requests for modifications as part of the conditional use?
That's my understanding, yes.
Is that correct, Mr. Hand?
Yeah, it's part of the conditional use PRD process.
All right, so when I look at those items, those requests, as A through D, when you look at section 101 section 1 of the conditional use, 280-101, that gives you a general stand. It talks about safety and all that.
Maybe further. Sorry.
It's okay. She just put her hand up to me, and she may throw something at either of you if you keep talking.
Well, hit the lady first.
Go ahead, Dennis.
All right, so with those requests that Mr. Ham is making on behalf of Braun, when you look at the standards set forth in 280-101, those are general standards, talk about safety. Do any of those requests have an effect upon any of those general standards on safety, etc.?
Well, with respect to traffic safety, the road radius one, a lot of the roads in this development are cul-de-sac roads, they're dead-end roads, they're not through roads. More than likely you'll have they're going to be 25 mile an hour posted speed limits, as is typical in the township. So traditionally what I've seen when an applicant requests a modification, they'll also submit some justification as to why they're asking for the modification. Then certainly the board would, and our office would consider that request for a modification and either approve it or deny it. So that might be something that would be helpful with respect to the road radius geometry. Some justification as to why they want 150 feet as opposed to 200 feet. Truthfully,
See, that's what I'm concerned about. When I see these requests for the modifications, when you look at the general standards set forth in 101,
yeah.
The question is, what impact is it going to have? And like you stated, why do you want to have those modifications, Brad?
The setbacks are pretty obvious. If you don't apply for the setbacks, the PRD just doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
The radiuses, it's twofold. One, it's to actually be able to condense the whole site for a PRD, which is the purpose of the PRD, is to actually try to condense the site and leave as much open space as possible. Two, I'll have to double check what the original justification is from the modification, because that was done 5 years ago. But a lot of times we do that for traffic concern. The smaller radius is actually kind of calm traffic, because like PJ mentioned, you just cannot drive as fast around the bends as much. So these are all cul-de-sac streets. I can't imagine anybody going down them very quickly. They're 25 mile an hour speeds.
Just looking at your overall diagram here, Chris, do you know which one of these horizontal curves is the 150-foot radius?
I don't know off the top of my head. Oh, the
So
horizontal.
looks like the tightest horizontal curves are on cul-de-sac roads to begin.
Yeah, the horizontal, probably the 150 is most likely this and maybe this one coming on.
Doesn't all equate, you can jam more units into the parcel, America.
So,
Jesus.
and The final point I'll make about you, Dennis, you asked me about the other modifications that are requested here. Just for context, I went back and did some research, some of the files that Bankson inherited when we started with Union Township. Chris's housing layout here, the minimum lot area would be approximately 5,800 square feet. At Highland Village, the minimum lot area is 7,200 square feet. The Mineral Beach lot width is proposed as 57 feet. Highland Village is proposed as 55 feet. And Tuscany Estates proposed is 54 feet, by the way. Front yard setback between Tuscany Estates, Mineral Beach, and Highland Village are each 20 feet. The side yard setback for Mineral Beach is 7.5 feet or 15 feet in between the buildings. At Tuscany Estates, it's also proposed to be 7.5 feet for their future phases. And at Highland Village, it's 5 feet on the side yard setbacks.
I have a question. Can I talk? Other than, my opinion, is to squeeze more units into a particular parcel, is there other legitimate questions that we have due to issues that the township would deal with as far as that?
Fires.
I'm worried about the 20 pounds per square inch on the discharge myself, but, I mean, is there, Dennis?
I'm concerned about that minimum horizontal, that's my major concern.
And why is that?
It has an effect on traffic and all that. So I have to make sure that TJ says, based upon the request, that he's satisfied. When you look at section 101 of the code, he appears to say he's satisfied, correct?
Well, I'm saying, I think it'd be helpful to have some justification from the applicant as to why they're requesting 150 feet in lieu of 200 feet. That'd be my first component of my response. And then the second question is an obvious one that I would counter your point there, Dennis, is that it'd be nice to know which of the curves is proposed to be 150 feet. So I think we just need a little bit more information before I'm comfortable making a recommendation to the board that they grant a modification for a lesser curve.
And that's the issue that I'm having right now. So why do you want to go make the modification to the radius?
Like I said, for two reasons. One is somewhat safety. Two is just to better fit the site. The curves are, I'll guarantee the curves are shown on the land development.
Yeah, I just don't remember which ones they are. I think they're on the profiles. I just don't, without digging through the set and spending more time.
Yes.
Two questions.
Sure.
Just based on other comments we've had from other developments in the area, am I correct in assuming there is no on-street lighting?
Correct.
Lighting? Not even a provision for it to be there and put in later?
No, we do not have any on-street lighting. Every house will have
Just a light on it?
yeah.
Okay.
And if the
I
top,
forgot my second question.
I was gonna say, if the township wants to come back at a later time and put on-street parking in at their cost, I'm sure they can do it.
Sorry for that.
The street lamps, not street lights. Just street lamps, but not street lights.
There's basically a lamp pole as part of the landscaping package that.
Well, there is a provision for a street lamp.
Not so much a lamp, it's more of a lamp.
It's a street light, but it's a lamp, house lamp.
A house lamp.
What do they call it?
It's a lamppost in the front yard of each house.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the other question just popped out. When they do the HOP, and I agree with the gentleman who brought up the point that it should be done at the right time of the year. And I think it would want to be when the beach house and that was running all their activities, because even you and I have talked about the amount of noise that comes from down there, going up and down the valley. Have you thought at all about any of that noise from down there affecting people up in those homes?
That's more of a home builder question, and I'm sure they've looked at the noise, looked at the site, and they have signed off on it, and are still willing to build their homes there.
I have a question about the side yards.
Yes.
So what were they, 7 or 7.5?
For this project?
Yes.
7.5 feet
And
side
that's
yard
what
setback.
Tuscany's.
That's what Tuscany is proposing on their phases that they're talking about coming in with.
Me and Larry were looking at the ceiling tiles to see how far that would be. It's like from me to him, the first guy in the first row here.
Yeah.
So if each person has like an air conditioning unit going in, is there room enough? Or I believe, and I don't mark me on this, but I believe like mobile homes federally can't be put closer than 20 feet. So just
Have to be a
fire-wise,
fire
do you
pit.
have any any
Well, that's-
recommendations safety-wise for homes that close?
That, to be honest, the 7.5 foot setback for this type of development is fairly standard across the
Is
board.
it?
Because the main reason why I know that is we run into storm sewer easements a lot of times with this, because most townships require a 20-foot minimum storm sewer easement, and a lot of places we do only have 15 feet between the buildings, so we can only provide a 15-foot easement. So 7.5 is fairly standard across the, I'm not going to say it's in everywhere, but the purpose of this plan is more of an entry level house, so you do need a few bit, you need to be able to fit as many homes in it. So
Maybe I'm just more rural, I guess, you know, I'm thinking, it seems very close for
Well,
me, but I'm,
I mean, your point's a good one. If you compare it to a township road, it's 24 feet wide. And that accommodates 2 travel lanes, right? So you can assume that a travel lane is roughly 12 feet wide. So it's tight. I mean, if you have to take an oversized vehicle to the rear of a yard for whatever reason, whether that be fire, whether that be ambulance, I can't think of any other reasons off the top of my head.
but it's not a non-standard width.
No, and you know, again, with the context here, there's side yard setbacks at Highland Village which are 5 feet, so potentially only 10 feet in between the 2 buildings. So it's definitely something to think about. I mean, if you have air conditioning units off the side of a house, that's going to neck that down even more. But you know, the travel lane's 12 feet wide, so.
and also bring up these particular dimensions haven't changed on this plan in 5 years.
That's a good point too.
So it's been reviewed thoroughly by everyone here, everyone before, and quite a few different people.
Any other questions for TJ from the board at this point in time? No. TJ, anything else you want to add for tonight's meeting? You've gone through the main document.
That's correct. I have nothing further.
So, based upon, if you look at section 280-101, standards and all that, so are there any issues concerning safety, except for traffic like we talked about today?
Not to my knowledge, no. I think we've covered the main requested modifications.
So no further questions from the board for TJ at all? At this point in time, anybody in the public have any questions? Mr. Kara? I'm sorry, I can't remember. Sir, you have any questions? I can't remember your name.
No, sir.
Sir, any questions? Any questions? We're gonna start charging $5 a question.
Since you got the print there, what's the dimension of our roadways up in Highland Village?
24 feet.
24.
Yes, sir. 24 feet is the standard roadway
Yeah,
width for
plenty
new
of room
roadways.
on our street. That worked out pretty well.
Yeah, so it's 24 feet wide, and then there's an 18-inch wedge curve on either side. So your total width is 27 feet.
Any more questions? Sir?
No more.
Any questions, sir? Questions? Pastor, any questions? Mr. Barney, any questions? Mr. Dick, I forgot you 2 ladies. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I do apologize.
I have.
Your name?
Connie Troutman.
Okay.
I live at 129 Parasia Way. Your request for the ordinance to be changed from the minimal front yard depth, 50 feet to 20 feet. Does that 20 feet also include, you said, sidewalk? Or sidewalk is going to be separate from the 20 feet?
That is 20 feet from the back of right of way, which the sidewalk will be within the right of way. So the 20 feet will be, the back curve is 27, base 13, so 6.5. So the houses will be 26.5 feet from back of curve.
26.5 feet from what?
Back of curb, if I did my math correct.
Back of curb.
Back of curb.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, no closer than 26 feet. Obviously, we can push them back further closer than 26 and a half. Like I said, if I did my math correct in my head.
Ms. Trump, any further questions?
No, thank you.
Ms. Savko, I do apologize. I kept looking this way, not at you, but I do apologize.
No questions.
Ms. Puglisi, any questions?
No.
All right, so before we close proceeding, just so I understand, you're going to supplement this record with what, Mr. Ham?
My understanding looking through this is easement agreements,
Right.
justification for the modifications.
Correct. So when can you supplement those? What was the other issue, TJ? I thought there was a third issue.
We need a cost estimate for the bridge improvements.
Correct. There's a third item. So we need the easement agreement with your developer and whoever owns that property.
Castle
And also with the issue concerning that radio tower, whatever you call that thing.
Yeah, there's, my understanding, three easements. The access, power, ground castle.
Correct.
And, I forgot, I remember what it was. PCSA, what do you call it? Capacity letter and also the agreement.
What about the PennDOT road study?
I think we already have this, don't we?
We have one that's dated 2020, needs to be redone.
That's what we're required. That's part of your conditional use approval.
Yeah.
Whatever the legalities are, Dennis. I just
Yeah, because
don't
that
wanna
would be a
miss
conditional use, that would, I don't want to say push, but move towards the land development.
What if it doesn't pass? Where they just gonna put in 2 streetlights or something?
Then we take that issue up at land development. Like I said, this approval doesn't grant us the right to build anything. It sets forth the parameters of what we're allowed to build to.
Mr. Free has a couple more questions.
So in reading the Pennsylvania American Water for the flow, so this isn't a developer's agreement. It has received the, Pennsylvania American Water received the attached construction plans for technical review. Are there a copy of the plans you submitted to them?
TJ has them.
Yeah, they're in this drawing set. They're in the utility drawings, yes.
So, because it states on here, this is in no way a developer's agreement.
No, and typically they will not enter into a developer's agreement until we get at least preliminary land development agreement from the township. Mostly because they start getting in developers agreements on plans that are approved by the township that may never be built. So usually they like to see the township get to a certain part. They will review our plans, state our plans are adequate in design, but they do not. Mostly it's to get into the cost and everything else, start filing developers agreements.
It states the letter of serviceability is not an approval of the facilities necessary to service this project. That concerned me.
That's their stand on everything until you sign the developers agreement. Because
Or does it constitute permission to construct said facilities?
what that basically covers is once they approve the plan, it could be 10 years before we come back in and 1,000 more homes go in and the water pressure drops. So that's kind of their language to cover themselves, stating that until we sign the developers agreement, they're not going to guarantee anything, and they won't do the developers agreement until we get some approvals from here. It's one of those that someone's got to approve something first.
We'll make that, we understand the process, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Any further questions or comments from anybody on the board?
No.
DJ?
No, sir.
All right, so you'll send him a letter, send him an email tomorrow, what we need from him? Because I can't communicate because he has legal counsel. So the different items we need, the agreement, the letter, the developers agreement, PCSA, and so forth. Okay? And do you recommend, at this stage, do you recommend approval? What do you recommend on the conditional use approval?
Well,
with caveats, I'm going to say.
Yeah, definitely. We've gone over a lengthy list of potential caveats, but.
Okay. And we have 45, if I'm correct, according to the ordinance here, we have 45 days to make a decision after today's date.
Yeah, I would suggest that, so you mentioned this at the top, Dennis, but there's 3 applications that have been submitted by the developer here. The conditional use, which we're talking about, the subdivision, and the land development. And we've discussed with the developer that we can't approve the land development, obviously, before the conditional use gets approved. They need to be concurrent at the very least.
Correct.
So, I think it would be prudent to add all of the applications to the upcoming agenda for the planning commission to be reviewed and approved at the planning commission, and then ultimately discussed with the board of supervisors.
And keep in mind, underneath the Sunshine Act, because I just had this issue the other day, that I think it's 702 subparagraph D, the board has, since you had a hearing, the board has the opportunity to conduct quasi-judicial deliberations amongst themselves. There's case law to that effect also. That's the Milford Township case or something. So, what may be prudent, rather before we author the documents like conditional use, I think it'd be prudent to have a meeting underneath the Sunshine Act. It's called quasi-judicial deliberations. I just gave that legal opinion today to somebody else. But we have that opportunity. We may want to do that before we give a final decision on these documents. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes.
So do we close?
So you're gonna make a motion to close the
I
testimony.
didn't know if we would leave open in case Kevin Braun wants to do any kind of testimony.
Is your client, well, he's not here. Does your client want to testify at all?
I don't think,
I was only asking the question whether or not we would close or leave it open in case Kevin Braun would want to do some sort of,
He's not here. I mean, I was assuming
Yeah.
if
the opportunity.
you, the opportunity. So if you want to make a motion at this point in time to close the testimony, the public hearing,
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Any questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
and so before you leave, somewhere in the next couple of weeks, we're going to have a quasi-judicial deliberation on these things. That make sense, everybody?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that's it. We're done. Happy Easter, everybody.
Happy.
thank you.
You look down.